Hello and welcome to Goal. Today, I'll tell you an inspiring story. This is the story of a girl who made her own clothing brand with no investment and not much support because she belonged to a poor family. There's a strong message of courage for every one of us that how we can fulfill our dreams by working hard with discipline and commitment like the girl named Emily Carter. A girl who grew up with almost nothing, but she did something the whole world came to admire. Life was very tough for Emily. There were days when dinner was just bread and tea, and nights when the cold crept through the thin walls of their home. But even in that struggle, Emily found something, a spark that no hardship could dim. She wasn't born into fame or luxury, not even close. Emily grew up in Manchester, in a tiny brick house on a quiet street. Her father worked long, hard hours at a textile mill, and her mother was just as hardworking, carefully stretching every coin to make sure there was enough for rent, food, and maybe a bit left over for the children. She was always curious about fabric. Her father sometimes brought home tiny bits of cloth and leftover scraps from the mill floor that nobody wanted. But for Emily, they were treasures. She'd collect them, smooth them out, and sit on the floor stitching them together into little dresses. She used to wear those dresses to school, and the kids from her school laughed and called her Rag Girl. She pretended not to care, but those words stung. Still, every insult only fueled her determination. She told herself, "One day I'll make dresses that everyone will want to wear," and that was her confidence in her. As she grew older, that spark turned into passion. She started sketching dresses in an old notebook, awkward shapes at first, but with every page they got better. She'd spend hours just drawing, imagining, dreaming. But dreams alone don't pay the bills. When she finished school, reality hit hard. Her family couldn't afford art school, and every design program she looked at was way beyond reach. So she did what she had to do. She took whatever jobs she could find. She worked in cafes, cleaned tables, stocked shelves at supermarkets, long, tiring shifts that left her on her feet all day. But the moment she got home, she'd sit by her old sewing machine, her eyes half open with fatigue but her heart full of fire. Her father used to walk past her room and shake his head. "Emily," he'd say, "you can't live on dreams. Sewing won't put food on the table." She'd look up, smile softly and say, "Maybe not yet, Dad, but maybe one day it will." And she meant it. By the time she turned 22, Emily was still waiting tables, but she had something special, a collection of handmade dresses she'd been sewing quietly at home. Her friends loved them, and one of them finally said, "Why don't you try selling them online?" Emily laughed. "Who'd buy my clothes?" she said, but that night something inside her whispered, "Why not?" So she did. Using a borrowed camera and her friend as a model, she took a few pictures in the park, nothing fancy, just natural light and passion. Then she uploaded them to a small online marketplace. She didn't expect anything. Maybe a few kind comments, maybe one sale if she was lucky. But the very next morning her phone buzzed. Order received. Then another. And another. By the end of the week, everything she'd made was sold out. She couldn't believe it, but what touched her even more were the messages people sent. One woman wrote, "This dress makes me feel confident for the first time in years." Another said, "It feels like you made this just for me." Emily read those messages over and over, tears in her eyes. For the first time, her work wasn't just about fabric and thread. It was about connection, about giving people something that made them feel beautiful. Orders kept coming, and soon her little bedroom couldn't contain all the fabric, threads, and boxes. So she moved everything into the living room. Her mother helped with packaging. Her younger brother carried parcels to the post office. It became a family operation, a tiny fashion business run from a small Manchester home. She didn't have investors or fancy equipment. What she had was grit. When she couldn't afford professional models, her friends stepped in. When she couldn't pay for advertising, she told her story honestly online. the story of a girl who grew up with nothing but a dream and a sewing machine. People loved her honesty. They saw themselves in her. And the more they listened, the more they believed in her brand. Within a few years, Emily's online shop grew into something extraordinary. She opened her first small boutique in Manchester, then another in London. Her dresses started showing up in magazines. Influencers wore them. Celebrities mentioned her name. By her late 20s, Emily Carter had built her own fashion empire. Her designs were being worn on red carpets. Her shows were being featured in Paris and New York, and the same people who once laughed at her name were now inspired by it. But Emily never forgot where she came from. One day, she took her father to her flagship store in London. It was bright, elegant, a world away from the dim textile mill where he had spent his life. He walked slowly through the store, touching the fabric on each rack. He stopped, looked at her, and whispered, "You've built something beautiful out of the scraps we once had." Emily smiled, holding back tears, because she knew he was right. Every piece of fabric, every long night, every cruel word, she had turned them all into something beautiful. And you know what's special about her story? It's not about fame or money. It's about a girl who refused to let her circumstances define her. Today, Emily Carter is one of the most respected designers of her generation. But when people ask her about her success, she never talks about profits or awards. She just smiles and says, "I started with a needle, thread, and a dream. Everything else came later." And maybe that's the lesson in her story. That sometimes greatness doesn't start with wealth or connections. It starts with belief, a tiny spark that refuses to die, even when the world laughs at you. Because if a factory worker's daughter from Manchester can stitch her way into history, then maybe, just maybe, we all can.